Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. I'm SirAshtown, and join with me today is BDECANDIO7 off of his big win from Charlie's Collectible Show in Stone Mountain, Georgia for their Lorcana 10K. How's it going, BDECANDIO?
Good. Stone Mountain, Atlanta, Georgia it's all up there, but yeah, it's going good.
I was really excited to hear that you had made it to the top 8, but also to get the big win. That's really exciting to hear. And you've been traveling around quite a bit. I've seen you at some of the other DLC challenges and going to these other big tournaments. So excited to kind of hear about your experience today and what's been going on with you with Set 5. How have you been? How's everything been going?
Great. I've been playing a lot of Lorcana, a lot of practicing, coaching, and traveling forward. I've been to Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas. I didn't quite get to Toronto. Had some passport dilemmas at the time that I didn't think were going to get resolved, but that was fine. I didn't really have too much interest in playing that format, but it turned out pretty good. But no, I've been enjoying Set 5. It's been a lot of fun theorizing mostly. We haven't had too many in-person events. Played a couple locals. Had some people over my house just to hang out, and we more talked than anything else than played. We actually got distracted a bit, but no, it's been good. It was fun to travel up there. First time going to Charlie's Collectible Show, and yeah, it was a great event.
That's awesome to hear. And we've been to Charlie's with the 20 Lore Pro team to stream their last 10K that they did. And so Charlie's is a great place, and we have enjoyed playing there. Great venue. Really just Charlie is great over there, and we hope to maybe go in the future. But what are some other big tournaments that you have been a part of for Set 5 and maybe even past in Set 4?
I haven't played anything else for Set 5 quite yet. I mean, prior to this, I did well at the DLC in Chicago. I lost in the top 8 with that with Blue Steel, and I played Blue Steel again in Dallas. I lost playing for day 2 in that one. So a little bit of a, knock here and there. A game going either direction will change the outcome of those kind of things. But played a lot of events, played some online events back when we had those early on with Steel Song, which is what I played this weekend. No, just looking forward to practicing the next few weeks. I don't really have anything big coming up between now and Vegas, but a lot of traveling in the meantime just for personal reasons, just weddings and stuff like that. But I'm definitely looking forward to using some data from this event to kind of do well in Vegas too.
Well, looking at your deck here at the Charlie Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K, the one that got you the win, could you give us a broad overview and kind of the overall game that you're trying to play with this deck?
Yeah, so it is Amber Steel Songs. Take a look here. The combination of Cinderella and Let the Storm Rage On has kind of been cemented into our play style and what to play around since Set 2, since it came out. Just giving you, essentially 3 ink worth of singing on turn 1. Really hard to come back from, and definitely exacerbates being on the play, which is rewarding for this deck more than any other because of how it kind of snowballs forward. Pairing with that, of course, is the Big Cinderella. I, in testing, was calling this deck 3 Cindy because it just played 3 copies of Big Cinderella. It's a very good card to allow steal mirror matches, and I expected the mirror match to be prevalent, so I wanted a bunch of those if I could. It always feels bad to ink one of those early and then need it later, not having access to it. And you had a flex slot or 2 that was on the inkable side, so it just became the 3rd one. Now this deck really focuses on combining the power level of Ariel and the other singers in the deck to power out Whole New World, kind of cement an advantage and kind of just remove everything your opponent plays and just get a bunch of lore into play with some of the more cheap characters we've seen with Piglet and Mr. Smee. Those 2 cards have been pretty much the defining aggro piece of these 2 colors for quite a while. Piglet's actually one of the few cards. I think so far Piglet may be the card that's won the most DLCs in the game, I think. I know the first weekend it won both of them. I think it's done well in a few others, but maybe. It won the first 2, and that's pretty important. Just a 2 cost 3 lore character is kind of insane for what this deck wants to do, and it's not really a turn 2 play often. I did play it on turn 2 in the finals match because I was against Ruby Amethyst, and just got to go fast sometimes. Being a late game character, which you can kind of just play out and have them have to also deal with in conjunction with whatever other threat you have, is pretty great. But kind of leaning towards the newest 2 cards in this deck, Prince Naveen is a card I've been basically saying my deck list starts with 4 of these. I'm not trying to fit 4 of these into my deck. I'm starting with 4 of these. In a lot of ways, you should really be looking at this card as a 0 cost 3/3 with 2 lore and Singer 6, because it functionally plays like that most of the time. Sometimes it gives you an extra ink if you're playing a whole world off it, because anytime you play it and a song, basically paying for itself when you play the song for free, and having an upright character after you hold in the world is a world of difference to having exerted a character they can then challenge, since right now this metagame is pretty hostile to challenges because of Daisy Duck kind of putting pressure on the format. I'm a big fan of Prince Naveen, and Pete kind of going back to Piglet and how it functions with Pete with this deck is late game, you can kind of, I like to call claiming or putting your opponent in check. Mid to late game, you get to go Whole New World off of one of your characters and then deploy maybe Piglet plus Pete plus like a Cinderella they can then shift, and they have to answer those 3 readied characters without using actions, and that's 8 lore they can't really interrupt, or 7 lore, how much lore in play. And that's kind of where you can call, checkmate, where they can do nothing really. Even in mirror matches, there's no answers to them except for, some oddball cards like the new Uninkable Stitch that's a 1/4 that deals 2 when you play it, or something along those lines. Not something we need to pay attention to, but some character that deals damage, or the big Simba from set 3 or something. Those are kind of cards that can answer, but no one's really playing. So Pete helps kind of, I like to call it, put your opponent in check or checkmate pretty easily, where you normally had to cross your fingers and hope they didn't have to be prepared. Well, you can just Pete them, and then they usually can't do anything. Yeah, those are most of the new additions. I wouldn't play less than 4 of either of those. They're really good in mirror matches. They gain a lot of tempo back in your favor. They stop your opponent from snowballing too hard. And yeah, just a plethora of songs we got to pair with a couple lanterns.
In my play group, we've been saying this kind of since we've seen Lantern versus Flute. Like, how do we play Lantern this deck? It sometimes feels kind of hard to play, but when have you seen it used the most effectively with your current list?
On turn 2. No, I mean, there's the debate. Lantern's an interesting card, right? It's not really something that does much of anything. It just helps you get more ink and kind of, again, snowball forward even harder. But Lantern is a card I played early on. In set 3, I played it in the first event I won in the online event. And then I kind of switched up here and there and added more, took out some, went back and forth on how many I wanted to include or not. Lantern's very good when you don't really know what you need to be playing against, and you just want to kind of cement an advantage going forward. And playing Naveen on turn 3 is kind of the dream, whether it be to kill something with a Zeus or Whole New World if you're going first. Lantern helps propel that outward. And right now, I don't think that Sleepy's Flute is a playable card, mainly because of Pete. Not only does Pete shut down the cards in your opponent's hand, but then it also shuts off their flutes. That's kind of a joke. So I had someone trying out the harp still against me, the 1/4 harp from one of the sets where you had to have a song played, and then I played a Pete, and then that was the first Pete I played against them when we were testing, and they immediately drew a harp, and they're like, well, this is a dead card. I can't even play it. And it just kind of an embarrassing card in that sense. So I don't know. I mean, I might not be a Lantern enjoyer as we get a more refined metagame and kind of know what I'm attacking specifically. But for right now, kind of executing my own game plan and being able to play bigger cards sooner is always a really key part of staying ahead. And Lantern helps do that pretty well.
Playing Naveen a turn early and maybe getting to play a Zeus right afterwards or a Whole New World, that's pretty strong.
Yeah, just gets you ahead really fast, and it lets you make use of your cards more efficiently with Whole New World. You get to play more things out before having to play another one and get even farther ahead. I mean, one of my favorite openings in all of the games since the set 1 was, turn 2 Lantern, turn 3 second Lantern, then Aerial. Just get to have essentially 5 ink worth of things played by that turn, and then the next turn after you've got 6 ink worth of characters to play out, and it can really kind of be hard to come back from if you do have a Whole New World from that position. But yeah, big fan.
Well, with this strategy, do you think that as the meta changes, like we see maybe more mirror matches of Steel Song, that you might want to increase the number of Bare Necessities that you're playing, or maybe decrease some of your other cards in the list?
This deck's actually, I think, pretty well geared towards the mirror match. Bare Necessities is sometimes for the mirror match. It's good going second. Against an opposing Cinderella, it's hard to play characters out, and normally that's when Lantern's really good. You get to have the ability just to skip over when that's relevant, or you also get to play Pete on turn 3 and kind of just not play into their Cindy Storm turns. And then Pete can kind of wreck them because they can't sing Storm, and then you can sing your own Storm off Pete to kill the Cinderella even. Bare Necessities is fine. It's more for getting information most of the time. I mean, it can take a be prepared at a key moment. It did that a couple times over the weekend. And sometimes a key song too, for sure. But it's one of the last cards I think I put in the deck. I think it was between figuring out if I could afford 2 more Uninkables and Grab Your Swords, or if even Grab Your Sword was relevant, which it wasn't because there are none in the deck, or just having 2 more Inkables was more important. And I like the Inkables, and sometimes they're great, but sometimes they're just ink, and that's fine too.
Wow, it sounds like this list is pretty impressive and lots of strong lines that you can play to kind of get you ahead. What do you feel like have been some of the toughest matchups for you with this list?
I mean, this deck inherently is not well positioned against the Ruby Sapphire control deck. That deck has a lot of acceleration between Tipo, One Jump Ahead, and Fishbone Quill, and they have really hard to answer threats as well as be prepared. And you Whole New Worlding is way more beneficial for them traditionally than the other way around. Their struggle is always about the amount of cards they have when they're playing against other decks, and giving them 7 is usually not great. you can time things pretty nicely, but it also depends on which version they're on. If they have more Be Prepared or more Sisus or Ice Blocks or other things, and it can be a difficult matchup. I mean, that's one you always want to dodge. I didn't play it until the finals, but I did win the finals 2-0. Like it's not unwinnable. It's just not very good to play that matchup. But that's the only matchup that this deck doesn't want to play against. That isn't like a completely targeted type of deck. I mean, you can build an Emerald Steel deck that's probably pretty good if you have a bunch of Ursulas and Petes, maybe. Like if you have 4 of each of those, that's pretty annoying to play against sometimes. But even then, in that matchup, you have Cinderella, which is usually pretty great against them. I mean, just Ruby Sapphire, that's been that way since set 3. You can do all you want. You can play cards like Flute, and you can play locations and stuff. And I still don't think you're heavily advantaged. I think you're just maybe not as disadvantaged. I don't know. I mean, I've mostly just chosen to, if I get paired against it, I'm gonna have a rough time. If I don't, that's great. So that's all I got.
And you had to actually beat it to win the tournament, is that right?
Yep. It was, I was going second in the match, and I won both games. One of the fallacies with the Ruby Sapphire deck is that it has a high uninkable count. And I think in game 1, they got to like 5 ink and then missed an ink for the turn, and their hand was like 2 Mufasas and 2 Medusas, and just like we're on 5 ink. And they, like the first time they missed, they had drawn like a Chicha, which I was like, this card is also not great, but I guess they're playing it because they wanted it for more mirror match type stuff. But I also had to manually cast a whole new world that game, so who knows. But no, Pete did pretty great there. It was like essentially the game closed out because I was able to play 6 or 7 characters out and just had them all kind of hoping they never drew a scar because they also had scars. But I also played Pete like 2 turns in a row, and that was like enough to cross the finish line, so they couldn't be prepared me. They had 4 Be Prepared in their deck, so I just had to assume they couldn't do it, and they just died. So
wow, that sounds like a really tough and interesting matchup. Sad for your opponent, good for you.
yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, is what it is. That's
sometimes how tournaments run. You just run well, and luck's on your side. You have the deck, you got the strategy, and it went your way.
Yeah. I think game 2, I just aggroed them out. I went Robin Hood into Piglet into Robin Hood Piglet, and then just played a Naveen with no songs, and just they killed 2 of my things, but I was at 13 lore, and then I just shifted a thing or so, and then just died on turn 5. So it can be quick. I mean, Piglet's there for that reason mostly, to be, it can be very aggressive against that matchup specifically, but also it can be, like I said, late game, just kind of helping close the game out with Pete. But some scenarios is 2 cost 3 lore, and you just cap that and play for more than 1 turn. That's really hard to come back from.
Congratulations on your big win at Charlie's Collectible Show. With this list, not giving away anything too crazy, any changes that you are thinking about making for Vegas or would make?
I don't have any information on that, in all honesty, yet. I kind of went there to find that out, see if I was very mistaken or if I was just giving everyone else a bunch of free information. And it feels like I gave a bunch of free information out, but people will always kind of fight playing lanterns, and that's just how people are. They're pretty stubborn when it comes to deck building usually, but we'll see. Right now, no. I mean, if it goes this tomorrow, I wouldn't change anything. We still got just under 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks till then, so a lot can change between then, based off of how people react, or if anyone comes up with something really, really, punishing to this type of strategy, or blue-red becomes, way more in the metagame than it is, which I don't think it will. It's still not great into Ruby Amethyst, which is the second most popular deck or so, but we could have a dance in that way between Steel Song, Ruby Amethyst, and blue-red again, like we did in set 3, but we also had green-purple there. Yeah, we'll see. Nothing yet.
BDECANDIO, where can we see you in the future? Are you still streaming or making any type of content?
I don't stream as much. It's been difficult without a client to play with to give the same kind of playthroughs and details I like to. I have a Patreon, which is also at BDECANDIO7. Same thing on Twitter. I post some stuff on there occasionally, and I know it's pretty receptive. But yeah, that's usually where to find me, at BDECANDIO7. Yeah, it's on the screen up there. It's handle everywhere. I kind of made it across the board, so it's easy to find me.
Now, you mentioned that you also do coaching. Is that done over on your Patreon?
Yep, I run it through there, so if you have any questions about that. There's only so many slots in general, but I'm looking to expand that soon. I just got to figure out how work-life balance and all that's going to go, and what I'm going to be doing up until Vegas, because I know up until Vegas it's going to be very busy. If you want to, let me know. Best to reach out to me on there. So,
how was it going to Charlie's Collectible Show? Did you enjoy the venue and the location? We had a great time last time that we went.
No, I mean, it was a really cool venue. I liked it. It was my first time going there. The event was ran very well. We had barely any delays, actually, between rounds. It was handled pretty quickly, and the judge staff and everyone there communicated clearly on what was happening and when it was happening and all that stuff. So no, it was great. I'll probably go back when they do the next one, depending on timing. I don't know. It'll be December-ish, I believe, around the next set when they do it. That's usually a busy time for me, but we'll see.
20 Lore, we weren't able to cover Charlie's Collectible Show due to some scheduling conflicts this time, but we are going to be live this upcoming weekend on September 14th at Game Castle for their Lorcana 1K. So if you're still on the fence, anyone out there watching and looking for a list to play, head on over to 20 Lore Pro's Twitch, where we'll be live on September 14th to hopefully show you some great competitive Lorcana. Well, BDECANDIO7, thank you so much for joining us here today. And for you, the audience, for watching, great pleasure to have you here today, BDECANDIO, and looking forward to your victory, hopefully in Vegas, and seeing you in the future.
Thanks for having me as always.
Y'all have a good one.